his whole look is very menacing, but the hat, it would have totally been spoiled if he had a hat with little lightning bolts on it.
Yeah, that
would not have been scary at all.
And I don't think all of it works for me. I think on the whole you like the film better than I do, though I do like it. And it's just barely horror. But when it does hit, man, it hits hard.
Well, a tip of the hat, Fright Clubbers, in more ways than one. Welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're talking about tipping hats, many frightful hats, and I can't remember. How did we get this idea?
It was your idea.
Was it my idea?
It had something to do.
I mean, what I meant to say was it was a great idea for me that time.
There were beers and
oh, well,
a discussion of Rose the Hat costume for Halloween.
Okay.
And I think it was an excuse for us to talk about Rose the Hat.
Well, that could be. Yeah, this reminded me, in looking over this list, that maybe we should update our... How long ago did we do the sexiest villains list?
Yeah, before. It was pre-Rose.
Okay,
yeah.
pre-Rose. And then,
pre-Rose.
since we've been watching... it's not really a movie, but we've been watching The Fall of the House of Usher, and Carla Gugina's in there.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
But so that just told you, that just spoils that Rose the Hat is going to be on here. But you probably knew that already because the hat is in her name. And that's a giveaway. That's not a spoiler. So we're talking about frightful hats. I like this topic, though. We're getting kind of nichey.
Yeah.
But we do that sometimes. Usually it's a good idea from somebody else, but this time I get to wear that hat. So. But beers were involved, so, that's inspiration all the time. So we'll get into that. Hats in horror. But before that, last time out, we were at Gateway Film Center. It was Friday the 13th, was it not?
It was Friday the 13th.
So that gave a little extra creepiness in the air. We talked about backwoods messiahs. That's a good topic.
Yeah, I thought so. And we showed Luz, the Flower of Evil,
yeah.
which is such a beautiful, visually stunning film. And it was really, really cool to see it on the big screen. We'd not seen it on the big screen before. We reviewed it, but it was a screener link, so we watched it on our laptops at home. So to get to see all of that, the colors and everything on a big screen was super fun. I think people liked it. They seemed to enjoy it.
I think they did, and I think they also really appreciated, as you say, the look of it, because it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
And everyone pointed out that on our list, we forgot Brother Sand from Mandy, Linus Roach's character from Mandy.
Yeah.
Funny story. When we first, usually when we sort of kick around an idea, as long as off the top of my head I can come up with 5 possibilities, we move forward. That's a topic that, and then, we'd spend some more time, we dig around, think about it, and then a lot of times our first 5 don't make the final list, but as long as we can think of 5. Mandy was on the original 5, and it never actually fell off. The problem is I lost the list. A lot of times, it's like I'll be sort of taking notes on something else, and I'll jot it down in the middle of a Word document or like in a text or in an email or in something that has something to do with something else, and I'll just jot it down. I couldn't find it. So then at the last minute, I had to just conjure up 5 off the top of my head and somehow managed to forget Mandy.
Well, that's exactly what happened to me when I forgot I thought of this topic of the hat. I had it written down on a napkin. In fact, it was a Bev nap from when we were out, and then I lost it, and that's what happened there. But yeah, that was a good one. I totally get that people wondered where Brother Sand was, because that's a good one, and it's a pretty recent one too. You think so it's very understandable that the first time you thought of it, it was boom, it was right at the top of your head, but then you just got lost, and that's what happens. There's so many good ones. You start thinking about other ones. Oh, yeah. And then before you know it, Brother Sand is on the cutting room floor. So
But like this one, it's funny when you start thinking about how many hats, especially that villains wear.
Mm-hmm. It's a good list, but we got it down to 5, right?
We do.
Do we have some also rans?
We do. One that I'm sure that you will appreciate, George. Norma from Carrie.
That's number 1 on the annoying hats list.
With the lightning bolt baseball cap that she wears even to prom.
One of the many
things. What's going on, Norma?
About that character that just drive me to drink.
And then another great one, I think, is from Poltergeist 2, Kane, the old man. He's got like that sort of religious guy hat on. Not the whole time, because when he takes it up, it's really his teeth. That's the selling point, but he looks good in the hat. And then the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Yeah, he's got that big, almost Indiana Jonesy kind of traveling hat on. Yeah,
his whole look.
Yeah, it's
his whole look is very menacing. But the hat, it would have totally been spoiled if he had a hat with little lightning bolts on it.
Yeah, that
would not have been scary at all. But that's
and
a
of
good
course,
hat.
Yeah, leprechaun. He's got a leprechaun hat.
Oh, I've got to have
yeah,
one.
and it's a good looking leprechaun hat. It's a nice shiny buckle.
And I'm sure he keeps it through the entire franchise, all the leprechauns.
Yes.
You got to have a hat.
That's right.
That's a good one.
Art the Clown, he's got that fun, tiny, small
Yeah,
size.
right.
It's a top hat, but it's a tiny, small size top hat. Sits jauntily to the side.
It's like Puddles the clown.
Yes.
A less murdering
Yes.
clown. Sings more than Art does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get that. Art the Clown has a good hat.
Yeah, he
and
does. The best villain hat of all time, the most iconic ever, the Wicked Witch of the West.
That's a good one.
But she doesn't make this list because that's by no means a horror film. But still, it's got to get called out because as a villain hat goes, no villain hat looks better.
That is a good one. And we also have to mention maybe my favorite hat, not horror, but the sorting hat from Harry Potter. Because any hat, first of all, it talks, it's mean, and it judges children. Love the sorting hat. My favorite thing in the entire Harry Potter franchise. So those are some good ones, honorable mentions of frightful hats. So we have five good ones, and we'll start with one that is are we just going to dive right in?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if we had anything else to talk about.
I don't think.
Okay, we'll get to that, though. We'll get to, though, about Obstacle Corps. So I know we have Obstacle Corps news.
Well, we can do that first
you
if you
that?
want. Sure.
Okay, because there's some hats in that film.
There are. In fact, a handful of the characters, before we flesh them out with actual actors, we refer to them by their hat color.
Yeah.
Because there's a baseball team in there, and for the longest time, like if you read original scripts, red hat says something, then yellow hat says something, then blue hat gets killed and
it's
whatnot.
Important.
Yeah. So the hats. And then, of course, there's a Viking helmet. There's a jester hat. There's some good hats in that one. You're correct.
Important narrative devices.
Indeed.
So we just found out, well, if you already happen to be a subscriber to Horror Pack, then you already probably have received the Horror Pack this month, which features Obstacle Corps.
Obstacle Corps for the secret Blu-ray from Horror Pack for the month of October.
Love it.
And they have some extras. So if you don't subscribe, think about it, because you get DVDs every month in their surprises, and sometimes they're brand new films that you haven't seen before. Sometimes they're sort of older movies that are fun to have, but it's a fun surprise, and it's not very expensive, and it's a great group of people over there.
Yes, big thanks to Chris Etheridge and
yeah.
everybody over there.
He's the best.
He is the best.
He's the
and
best.
It's not this also features, as Blu-rays often do,
Yeah.
little fun bonuses.
Yes.
We recorded a commentary track where you, me, and the boy, our son
Donovan, who plays Mason.
Yeah, we zoomed in with him. He's in L.A. And then we all got pointed the Zoom call so he could see the screen as we all watched the film and commented on it. So give you some fun, hopefully fun, BTS.
Yep, there's also
the scenes info.
Yeah, the short film that was our proof of concept.
Yeah.
That's on there, and the news station came out to the shoot. So
right.
there's the footage from the TV news segment that they did while we were filming.
Yeah, Cameron and
photos
Edwin,
and
the
stuff.
cameraman,
Yeah,
they came out.
That's right.
That's from Good Day Columbus, which here in Columbus, we're on Good Day Columbus every Friday with movie reviews. They have been supportive from day one, and they came out and did a great comment. It was pouring down rain.
Yeah.
We were all soaked to the bone.
Yeah.
But it's a nice behind-the-scenes look of a really one of the hectic, really trying days of shooting. So that's on there. So it's a lot of fun. So if you already have Horror Pack, good on you.
Yep.
It might be a reason to consider getting Horror Pack.
Yep.
It is, like you just described, why it's a great bargain.
It is.
But if not, we should have information soon about getting them from our website.
Yes. So that's exciting. I know a lot of people have been asking about physical media, and here it comes.
Physical media forever. Some more info on that should be coming soon. But let's dive in. We got a top 5 of frightful hats. And we'll start out one, this is not too long ago at all, from 2021. After being abducted by a child killer and locked in a soundproof basement, a 13-year-old boy starts receiving calls on a disconnected phone from the killer's previous victims. It's the Grabber and his hat in the black phone.
Would you like to see a magic trick?
Yeah. You're getting out of here.
How?
There's a combination lock.
What's the combination?
Hang up the phone!
You don't have much time. You're gonna use a weapon.
You are special, Vinny.
Please hurry!
Ooh, the creepiest damn thing.
Man, I got to give it to whoever the costume designer was. For Scott Derrickson is the director.
Yes.
And of course, Ethan Hawke, who does a lot of Scott Derrickson films because he did like Sinister. But I mean, Ethan Hawke's performance is magnificent in this. But if you've read Joe Hill's original story, it's a short story. The look of the killer in that is very, very different than the look that they went with for the film, which involves this series, this evolution of masks. But also, right at the beginning, when he's not the mask on, he's just out in public, this nice guy, this big black top hat. And it goes with the mask. And the whole look of this villain is so spectacular and so creepy. But at first, he's just sort of a klutzy, sort of a goofy amateur magician with some balloons and the hat is perfect, and it makes you think of, as he's sort of twirling it around, it makes you think of old Frosty and that hat that brought him to life.
Yeah, it's a good mask too.
Great mask.
And it's a stovepipe hat for the grabber, and coincidentally enough, since we've already talked about Rose the Hat, he is wearing a hat and he abducts a child walking home from a baseball game.
Yeah.
And of course, there's that very terrifying scene in Dr. Sleep.
That's the scariest scene in the whole movie of Dr. Sleep.
It's really good. But anyway, the black phone was really well done. In fact, that's one of those that was a big crowd pleaser.
Yes.
I was hard-pressed to find anyone who didn't like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of reaction is what caused it to get delayed. It originally had a January release, and we've said many times that January it's a lot like August sometimes. It's a dumping ground. They just push something to January. Usually you see something's opening in January, you think, oh boy. But the early word and the preview screenings were so well received that they pushed it. They realized they had something great and gave it a summer release date. And it really paid off. It's a creepy story. It is one of those rare instances where you take something of a short story and fill it out, but it doesn't feel like filler to get it to feature length.
Yeah, it definitely gives it I think even a Stephen King feel with the way that they fill it out with a B story with a family. And also, I think shout out to how well it nailed its date.
It really,
it's like 1973,
really did.
74, and it really did. It had it down.
It really did. The timestamp was fantastic. Anybody that grew up in the 70s, you just recognize the look of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that helps, that shouldn't go... you don't say that lightly.
No.
I mean, that really takes you into it, and the neighborhood, and they're just across the street and what's going on in that house, and it just makes it so creepy. And there are moments, when he gets out, it's sort of that trap where he's able to get out the door, and there's so much tension there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not a gore fest.
No.
Not at all. It's all frights and tension and
it's
atmosphere.
Very spooky. Yeah.
Very spooky.
Yeah, it's a scary movie. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, but a great look. A great mask, and a great stovepipe hat for the grabber, and Ethan Hawke as the grabber in the black phone, and that is number 5. All right, number 4 on our list of frightful hats. This goes back to 1983 in a small American town. A diabolical circus and its demonic proprietor prey on the townsfolk. Mr. Dark, something wicked this way comes.
I am pricking up my thumb, something wicked this way comes.
Then rang the bells both loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep.
Where do you come from? The dust. Where do you go to? The grave.
Yes. We are the hungry ones. Your torments call us like dogs in the night. And we do feed. And feed well. Tell me where the boys are hiding. And I can make you young again.
Well, we talked about Stephen King here just last time because Joe Hill, if you didn't know, is Stephen King's son. He actually wrote a rejected adaptation years ago of this film, of the adaptation of the Ray Bradbury book. It got rejected. So because even Stephen King has tasted rejection.
But Ray Bradbury himself wrote the screenplay. So I guess if you're going to be outdone by someone, it ought to be the author of the book. I suppose that's fair enough. And actually, it's funny. It's a Disney film.
Yes.
And the final product is a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a bit of a mess. It feels like it's been gutted and retooled. It doesn't.
Well, it was. It was retooled.
It doesn't. The movie does not work nearly as well as it ought to. However, it does have some great moments to it. It's got this lovely sort of nostalgic feel. And Jonathan Pryce plays Mr. Dark, and he's just perfect.
He's great.
Because he's so charming and he's
dignified
and such a manipulator. And
Yeah.
it's funny because he's got also a top hat on, which it's set in Illinois of the 1950s, and all of these sort of regular Joes, and then here he comes with his. But it seems perfectly fitting on him.
Yeah.
It just it just seems like you're a little bit better than us, and he wears it well.
And Price is already, I think he was 6'1", but they
Yeah.
gave him high
Yeah.
shoes. They want to make him even
Oh,
taller
yeah.
and
Yeah,
even
yeah,
more
yeah.
menacing. And of course, then the hat just makes him even taller than that. But you were talking about the retooling, and then with Black Phone, we were talking about good test screenings. Well, this one had poor test screenings, and that's why Disney held back the release for a year. They re-edited it. They filmed additional and replacement scenes with a second unit director, added that opening narration, and hired James Horner to write a completely new score. So that, you talk about retooling, that is retooling.
And the thing, too, though, the thing about that makes me curious what the original was like is that Jack Clayton was the director, right? Who did The Innocents, among other things. I mean, he I'm trying to think of what the mainstream film, he did something huge, some mainstream film, and I can't think of what it is, because The Innocents is one of my very favorites. And it's really a masterpiece of spooky, not gory, sort of tension and psychological terror. I would love to see his original version and what that was like.
Well, apparently, obviously he wasn't, but Ray Bradbury also apparently was not pleased with the studio's intervention to try to pump it up with all the extra, like the spider attack was added and the mirror maze climax, and it was filmed like nearly a year after the original production wrapped, and it has a different, like you said, a different feel. You can just feel this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
there are
it's
too
a
many,
bit of a mess.
You can tell a lot of times with a movie when there's just too many hands in here.
Yeah.
Somebody said, "Oh, do that," and this is what it feels like. But at the heart of it is a pretty, obviously with Ray Bradbury, a cool story, and Mr. Dark is certainly a very cool character. And also, it was Ray Bradbury who had in mind both Steven Spielberg and David Lean for Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean for directors before they went in a different direction. So very interesting, but a lot of different Disney hands in that one. And then after all that, it pretty much was a flop when it came out.
And it's funny because, like every Disney movie ever was on the Disney Channel when they first churned it out, like its whole back catalog, except this, which I think it may be now. But for a long, long time, it's almost like they just pretended it never happened. And that seems unfair. I mean, it is an enjoyable movie. It's a bit of a mess, but so are a lot of things. I like it.
And Mr. Dark is still a great villain. I think we've
is.
talked about him a few times.
Yeah.
And he has a great hat. Jonathan Pryce as Mr. Dark in Something Wicked This Way Comes, number 4 on our list. All right, moving it up to number 3. This is a famous hat and a famous look. This is from 1971, set in the future when a sadistic gang leader is imprisoned and volunteers for a conduct aversion experiment that doesn't go as planned. This is A Clockwork Orange and Alex.
What crime did you commit?
The accidental killing of a person, sir.
He's enterprising, aggressive, outgoing, young, bold, vicious. He'll do.
This young boy is a living witness to these diabolical proposals. He can be the most potent weapon imaginable.
Everybody needs a good bowler.
A bowler, and it's really part of an iconic. You know the look and the hat is so iconic when you can just put a picture of a bowler and then that little eye, the
eyelashes.
eye black. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And then
well,
you know
I have
exactly.
that T-shirt.
I know. But that just shows you. That's
Yeah.
all you have to see.
Oh, yeah.
If you just saw the bowler, it might do it for some people, but you add the little eye. And, yeah, exactly. It's a very, very identifiable look for a very iconic character from A Clockwork Orange, played, of course, by Malcolm McDowell.
Right. And it goes back, I think, to what we were saying about the grabber, about the black phone, is that the look of this character, actually, of the four of them, of Alex and his droogies, it's such an interesting and unusual take, and it's such a good blend of like futuristic and retro, of sort of punk rock and, Ludwig van, of something that's elegant and something that's just brutal. It has sort of, I think, a skinhead kind of a quality to the way it looks, but a lot of that is because of the boots. But it's just an immediately terrifying, perfectly suited outfit for that group of people.
Yeah, it really is. There's a weird story, and I don't know if it's true, but Anthony Burgess, who wrote the novel, originally sold the movie rights to Mick Jagger when he needed quick cash. And it was Jagger's intention to make it with the Rolling Stones as the Droogs.
Oh, yeah.
But then he resold the rights for a much larger amount. I bet he did. But that would be weird. I don't know if that's true, but it's a great story.
It is a great
even
story.
If it's not. Can you imagine
it's a great
the
thing
Stones?
to think about without having to actually watch it. And I only say that because I love this movie.
Yeah.
Both of us, big Kubrick fans.
Oh, yeah.
2001. Of course, both of us are Shining. Clockwork Orange is easily my favorite Kubrick film. Easily. By a wide margin.
And as with a lot of Kubrick films, there have just been so many rumors and things that have come out about the movie in the decades after its release. One of those is that they said it was banned in the UK, which it was not.
Oh.
It was not banned in the UK, but Stanley Kubrick withdrew it in the UK when 2 copycat crimes happened in the early 1970s, around 1973. About that were similar to the Singing in the Rain bit. So yeah. So, but no, not officially banned in the UK.
Which is interesting because they are so ban happy, or they were not so much. It was more 80s than 70s when censorship and the video nasties label became so prevalent in the UK. But it's interesting to have a movie that wasn't actually banned over there.
It was also one of the first films to employ radio mics to record the sound. No overdubbing was required. So
nice.
A little bit of a technical. And here's something I just learned about this. I had no idea. But in the scene where Patrick McGee's wheelchair was carried down the stairs, that's David Prowse, who played Darth Vader.
Uh-huh.
He was under the suit.
Wow.
Had no idea.
No.
Until I was just looking up stuff for this movie.
Wow.
Who apparently, as the story goes, he was not shy about ribbing Stanley Kubrick about his multiple takes because he had to carry that, even though he's a big, strong guy.
Well, it's a big.
Yeah, and he made some remark about, boy, you're not exactly, 2-take Stanley here, are you? And everybody was just aghast. And I guess Kubrick just laughed it off. That's another story.
2-take Stanley.
May or not be true, but it's a good story. But going back to the hat, yeah, it's a look that has become so iconic over the years. In fact, I think when our son was little, didn't he go? He went a Halloween costume.
He did. I got yelled at. I had a number of parents yell at me for that costume, but he looked adorable.
He did.
He wasn't like he was 4. He was at least 6 or 7. Yeah, no, I did. I got yelled at by a lot of parents about that. Although I think the first costume ever, because it was a very simple costume. He had on, like black sweats and a little hoodie and just a hockey mask. Just a hockey mask when he was about 18 months old.
That was
I got yelled at for that one too. But he was a cute Alex.
He was. Heck with the, come on, neighbors, lighten up. That is a Clockwork Orange and Alex and his bowler. We were looking for that. We were just in Spirit Halloween, of course.
Yeah, we've been in Spirit Halloween
lot.
Twice a week for the last month.
But we couldn't think of the name. You were looking for a hat like that to match it up with a picture of your shirt.
Yeah.
So it's a bowler.
It's a bowler. I couldn't think of that word.
For Alex and a Clockwork Orange, number 3 from 1971. Moving it up to number 2. This is a favorite from 2014. A single mother and her child fall into a deep well of paranoia when an eerie children's book titled Mr. Babadook manifests in their home. It's the Babadook.
You can't get rid of the Babadook.
You can bring me the boy. You can bring me the boy. You can bring me the boy.
What do you want? You're trespassing in my house! It isn't real. It isn't real. It isn't real.
This is such a good movie, a favorite for many reasons and many categories, I think, that we've talked about. And also the debut for writer-director Jennifer Kent, the feature debut.
The feature debut, yeah.
Because she did a short, I believe it was called Monster,
Yeah.
that this was based on. Used to be on YouTube. That's when I saw it. And if it's still there, I would highly recommend seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
But this is such a good movie and such an assured vision for a brand new filmmaker. And we love, when we talk about the hat, love the fact that because of the Babadook's look, it went on to become sort of a symbol for the LGBTQ community and you started seeing it all over the socials with the rainbows and the, around Pride Month and everything.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, it's because it had been mislabeled on Netflix, right? As that was
Happy
one
accident.
of its exactly, but it was embraced. It was like, oh yeah.
And then you see, his big smiling face
Oh, my
took on
God.
a kind of like
Oh, yeah.
well, he's not so evil, is he? Look at that jaunty hat. But it's such a great movie and such a great metaphor, I think, that has been misunderstood by a lot of people, especially early on. Maybe not so now because there's been a lot more discussion about it. And about the child and why the child is so annoying.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of those deals where that we've said many times in talking about a movie. When you question something, think about it. Maybe it's intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
it's intentional.
You spend 5 minutes. Noah Wiseman. I mean, Essie Davis plays the mother, and she gets all the credit in the world. In fact, I think a lot of us at the time were really rooting that she might get an Oscar nomination. She's magnificent in this movie. Noah Wiseman, who plays the son, he's equal to her. He's brilliant, and you spend 5 minutes. You the first 5 minutes with that kid, and you're thinking, "Oh yeah, I'd kill him."
Exactly.
But of course, that had to be I think tough on him because that's the whole point. Is that deep down he knows she kind of wishes I was dead.
Yeah.
And then he wants to feel safe, but he can't feel safe because of her, and she's not addressing that herself. But that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about the Babadook and that hat. And it's just awesome. The whole look of that, And the way the movie looks, the cinematography and the set design is just gorgeous. It's creepy and macabre. This pop-up book is so well constructed. And then the way the whole movie takes on that sort of house of mirrors, hall of mirrors, just these weird angles and this exaggerated sort of the way the lines poke out, a lot like a pop-up book. And it's, the big coat, the big smile, the crazy hair, but also on top of everything, that hat is it's
very much so.
He's a great look. The Babadook has a great look.
And we had to go through this, and anybody that is making a low budget or independent movie, you had to go through raising some money.
Yeah.
Coming up with ways to raise money. Well, this is great. The movie had a campaign where you could buy a copy of the hand-created pop-up book for $80.
Wow.
The first 2,000 copies are numbered and signed by the director. Holy moly. Imagine getting one of those.
Oh, yeah.
How sweet is that? It contains pop-up pictures, additional pages not seen in the movie. That campaign was only open for a limited amount of time, and about 9,500 books were sold for $80. Wow. Man, what a great fundraiser. Because, the look, using it as a pop-up book, because that can always be a scary device, like you open the page and boom, something jumps out at you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just used to such great effect.
I love pop-up books. We have a couple.
Yeah,
we have a couple, really well-made for adult pop-up books. We have the entirety of Wizard of Oz, I'm bringing that up again, as a pop-up book. It's an amazing art form.
It really is. But you're right. The entire look of the Babadook, including his hat, is just perfect. And we've talked about The Exorcist here lately. William Friedkin said of this film, "I've never seen a more terrifying film than The Babadook." It's one of those, and a lot of the movies like this, you can always find a certain crowd. That's not the kind of frights they're into. Oh, nothing happened, not scary at all. But it's one of those that if it does speak to you, man, it's a deep down, psychological, psyche type of scare that I always appreciate.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Love that, and love the look of the Babadook, including the hat of the Babadook from 2014. That's number 2. And moving up to number 1, well, we might have spoiled this already, but from 2019, years following the events of The Shining, a now adult Dan Torrance must protect a young girl with similar powers from a cult known as the True Knot, who prey on children with powers to remain immortal. It's Rose the Hat in Dr. Sleep.
Well, hi there. Get out of my head! Get out! I haven't felt power like that in so long. They're coming.
You sure you want to do this?
I'm ready.
Yes, you run, dear. And then I will find you, and you will scream for years.
Come and play with us forever and ever.
Rebecca Ferguson cuts an interesting presence in this movie because Rose the Hat is evil, but at the same time, there's something about her where she's just doing what needs to be done. She's really she's nurturing this group of misfits. I mean, there's something about her that you can't help but, in a way, almost admire. However, it's almost exclusively children that she preys upon, and she doesn't at any moment express even the hint of regret.
Oh, no.
That not only is she luring children to her, at the very beginning she's singing the Irish lullaby. That's an Irish lullaby. And so not only is she luring children to her, but what she wants, what tastes delicious, is their fear and pain. So it's a fascinating character. And Rebecca Ferguson is, to me, easily the best thing about this movie.
Yeah, she is great. And the hat that Rose the Hat wears, that's a tatty silk top hat, that is. And yeah, she and her gang, the True Knot, are fascinating.
Yeah.
Just fascinating. I was just talking to somebody, a coworker here who was saying that they still have not seen this.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I think it's about as good as you can expect a Shining sequel to be, because that is such a big assignment to undertake. And I give credit to Mike Flanagan for even going there.
Yeah.
Of course, he had the book as a guidepost, but still, what he does with the look of it, and he did the very smart thing of, since you're going to have different actors play these characters, we see them right away.
Yep.
So that if you save it to the end when they go back to the Overlook, that would be too much of a shock.
It pulls you back out of it.
Pulls you back out of it.
But when you're introduced to it early, then that's what you're expecting when you go back. And I don't think all of it works for me. I think on the whole you like the film better than I do, though I do like it. And it's just barely horror. There's so much of it that is really sort of tense drama. But when it does hit, man, it hits hard. We were talking a second ago about the baseball scene.
Yeah.
You know,
with little Jacob Tremblay.
I know, who I love so
yeah.
much. That whole scene will kill you. And the opening.
Yeah.
The opening.
Yeah.
And every time Rose the Hat shows up, I mean, things just get nutty in a great way. And of course, Ewan McGregor, who plays Dan Torrance, he does a great job, as he always does.
This coworker I was just talking about, I was recommending the director's cut. Because it's another instance like, say, Midsummer director's cut. You just feel like the characters are more deeply enriched. They're just more well-rounded.
Filled out, for sure.
So definitely, if you haven't seen it, I would say go for the director's cut. But yeah, I think it's pretty effective. And Rose the Hat and her tatty silk top hat is she hardly ever gets upset.
Right.
She's very calm, but man.
Unflappable.
But you find out why she's the leader of that group. And it leads to a pretty good revisit to the Overlook, I think. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of callbacks, as you might imagine, to The Shining. You've got the same January 1978 issue of Playgirl magazine pops up. Even some of those little bits to go the deep dive that so many people have done with The Shining. And even the opening there that you talked about, exchanging the flowers with a little girl, actually, of course, reminiscent of Frankenstein.
Yes, very.
But but Mike, that's what Mike Flanagan does.
Yeah, he does so well.
Yeah, he does so well. And of course, right now we already talked about, we've been watching, along with so many others, have been watching The Fall of the House of Usher, and he also uses the same cast members a lot. So in this one, you'll see Bruce Greenwood is in this one, and then the girl who played Abra, Riley Curran, she's in the Fall of the House of Usher as well.
And Henry Thomas,
of course,
he
Henry
uses
Thomas.
a lot of the same cast, and
He does.
and it's we never watch shows ever. We never watch shows, not because we don't want to, because we just really don't have the time, because we see 200 movies a year. However, we have, since Midnight Mass, we have made room. We make time to see Mike Flanagan shows because
they're also, we can handle it because they're 7-8 episodes tops. I think that's why we originally dug into Midnight Mass. Thought, 7, 8, whatever it was, and loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, it was actually Fright Clubber Jeff Bose who pointed out to us that we needed to watch Midnight Mass. He was so sure that we would love it, particularly because I always get on movies for getting Catholicism wrong, and he's like, "Nope, this just stinks like incense. You're gonna love it," and he was correct.
Yeah. So thanks for that, because we did, and that's the reason why we wanted to make sure we checked out The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix right now.
Plus, I love Poe.
Yeah, and Rebecca Ferguson also, she made a specific shopping list for each member of the True Knot and hand-selected the items in her shopping cart herself. So maybe she gets the credit for that silky, what's it called? The tatty silk top hat. She had a shopping list for all of them.
It's got a steampunk look about it, I think, the tatty silk top hat.
Yeah, and she wears it well. And that is number 1, Rose the Hat, on our list of frightful hats for this edition of Fright Club. So we're looking ahead to, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Here we are at the end of the month. Coming up in just a few days, we're going to be diving into the great weekend that is the Nightmares Film Festival.
Yes, we
here
are.
in Columbus, Ohio. So if you can make it at all, Gateway Film Center, it is just one of, if not the best genre film festival in the country. And it's gotten so many accolades drawing attention to that fact. And it's a great community as well.
Yeah, it really is. And, if you're a filmmaker or if you are interested in getting to know film, it's a really great place to come and to meet other writers, to meet filmmakers, to meet crew, just to network and get together. It's also Gateway Film Center, which is such a great place to see movies. And the films are great, as we know, because we're on the panel, so we got to help select them. So we've seen most of them already, and they are great, as they always are.
Feature films and short films, and they're adding a trivia night this year. You've got panels, lots of great stuff going on all weekend. So love to have you make it if you can. If not, maybe, put it down for next year.
That's right.
This is the 8th annual.
Also, we were just now on a podcast called from the Cat Club podcast.
Yeah,
with Rick Gethin. And it's music. The podcast is music. But what we did is there are 4 songs that we talked about that get you in the spooky mood. And then we recommended 4 different horror films for your Halloween viewing pleasure. And we decided, what do we think somebody might be in the mood for? So if you're in the mood for a classic, we have one of those. If you're in the mood for a zombie movie, we have one of those. If you're in the mood for a horror comedy, if you're in the mood for something a little more extreme. And that was fun. It's always fun to be on one of his shows.
Because when people say, well, just pick your 5 favorite one, it's almost impossible for us to do. So it's easier to pick it in. Okay, well, what are you in the mood for?
Yeah.
Maybe some people don't like too extreme.
Right.
Let's go the horror comedy route. Okay,
Right.
we got something for you.
Right.
So check that out. The Cat Club podcast. Rick, very generous with his time, and it's a fun one because we don't get to talk that much about music in ours, and it's fun to dig into some tasty cuts that have a Halloween flavor, and we did that. So that is available now.
And then coming up next, the next Fright Club will, of course, be the Fright Club Live, which is going to be on Friday, November 10th. We're going to screen one of, I think, the most underseen gems of the last 10 years, Border.
Oh, yeah. Now, last time out with Lose the Flower of Evil, nobody in the crowd had seen the
Not
film
one
at all.
person.
I would bet you no one has seen this one either. I'd be surprised.
It's possible, and in a way, I kind of hope so because it's one of those movies that every new scene surprises you. So we're not going to give anything away, except that there is love afoot in the movie, and that is
the category.
That's going to be the category.
Love
true love,
story.
and of course, true love stories in horror don't usually go very well, but that doesn't matter.
So that is on November 10th, Friday, November 10th, at Gateway Film Center. So make that if you can. And by all means, we know if you're on the Facebook, you can join us for the Fright Club Podcast Facebook group. Private group, it's just us. Just us Fright
Just the
Clubbers.
club.
Yeah. But just put in a request there. We'll get you in. There's a lot of fun stuff. We talk about movies. We have some fun. Put that down. But yeah, we'd love to have you in there. And as always, you can find us on our regular channels, Fright Club Pod on Twitter, and of course the main website where you can find all of our other movie reviews and our weekly podcast about all the new releases that are coming out called The Screening Room. You can find that all at madwolf.com. Where else are we? Mad Wolf Columbus on Instagram and Threads, and the regular Facebook page is Mad Wolf Columbus. What am I forgetting?
I think that's everything.
Is that it?
Instagram? Yeah, you said that. Yeah, I think you got it.
We're out there.
We're
Find
out
us.
there.
So keep in touch if you can. Have a great Halloween. We will talk again soon. And until then, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Hi, folks. I'm Bruce Campbell, hanging out here with Hope and George. Stay groovy.